everyone. Good morning. Happy Friday. Welcome to Maison&Objet. And today we are looking at design as a force for change, and most notably, I think, how it can have a positive social impact. We often talk about sustainability from an environmental viewpoint, but I think as the years have gone on and the more educated we've become around sustainability, it's become increasingly apparent how the social impact has become a huge part of the sustainability conversation. Just to introduce myself, I'm Roddy Clarke. I'm a design journalist and I contribute to a variety of titles. And a lot of my work focuses on the positive environmental and social impacts that design can have. And today I am joined by Sebastian Herkner, Marcel Müller of M2 Rugs, and Reto Aschwanden of Label Step. And we're discussing a project that they collaborated on, which looks at social impacts and also environmental impact too, materiality, and a lot of different ways that design can really have a positive impact on creative communities. I'm going to come to you, Marcel, first to introduce yourself. We've got Marcel for about 15 minutes, so he will disappear in a puff of smoke at about 11:15, so don't be alarmed. But Marcel, coming to you, if you could introduce M2 Rugs to the audience and sort of describe how the story started for you.
Hello. Yeah, M2 Rugs is a small label brand for hand-knotted contemporary rugs. I founded the brand in the beginning of 21, so during COVID. I was already about 15 years in the industry before I decided to run my own business. So I had the advantage, if you found something new, that you can look on what you've done before and the companies you were working with and what were the positive effects and the more maybe negative ones. And you can think of changing processes just from the beginning. That was a good chance for me, actually, because the companies I was working for before were like old established companies, and if you really want to change processes within those kind of companies, it's always difficult because you always hear, oh, we've always done it like that. So I had the advantage of really looking into every single process when we founded M2 Rugs during COVID.
And obviously you certify your rugs with Label Step, and you've worked with Sebastian on the design side. Can you talk about the collaboration? I think most notably the project that people are going to see on the pictures behind us, how that came about, and also maybe delve into why collaboration is really important for you.
So Reto and Sebastian were some of the first people I called when I had the idea to found my own business. And especially the collaboration with Step, so we knew each other since many, many years, and the brands I was working for before, some of them were Label Step certified as well. So when I founded M2 Rugs, as I said, it was during COVID, so that first of all gave me the time, like 1 year in 21, where nothing was happening and no trade shows, no new developments. So I had the time to develop, but I wasn't able to travel to Nepal or India or wherever to check the productions. So I was in a very close conversation with Reto just from the beginning to check different production options in Nepal. So the idea was not to start something and get it certified. The idea was to start with something which is already certified and which already has the standards I want to have. So that was the first development with Reto. So, and then of course I had to start with the collection. I'm not a designer, obviously. So I called Sebastian and I put all the quality samples I had in my car and drove down to Offenbach and was like knocking on his door and like, have a look, this is what I want to do. And we are on the same page when it comes to the importance of craftsmanship and quality. So and then we really started from that point. I think it was already during the first meeting to start with a collection idea.
And obviously working with people that share your values and share your mindset is so important. And obviously, the three of you, you know, through this project really have the same embedded values. Looking at the sort of the communities that you work with, could you talk more about the communities specifically and how you're helping to also preserve these really valuable skill sets, but then also sustain and build up these creative communities as well?
Yeah, so the weaving techniques in Nepal, it's a pure handmade thing. It's an old craftsmanship, and it's nowadays difficult to find new weavers to really continue this working. So it's important for us to give them really good working conditions and an environment where it's good for them to work in. So that's the point where we work in the production, which is mainly based in Kathmandu. So then we are also supporting a couple of projects with Label Step, bringing production places and manufacturers to the countryside, to rural areas in Nepal. This is another project we are supporting. And then we're also looking in the material part of the whole production process. So we started now to work with local Nepalese wool. So usually most of the rugs made in Nepal are made in New Zealand wool or Tibetan wool. So we found also together with STEP a small community in Upper Mustang, which is very close to the Tibetan. Oh, you can see it here, no? And we are now sourcing all our wool from this region in Nepal, so it's coming from small nomad families who have their sheep there in a very traditional way. So we were traveling there to take pictures of the sheep and to visit these nomad families. And another thing is the nettle collection.
Which you will have samples of, if you could pass them around so everyone can have a feel of them actually.
So we developed this nettle collection. It took us 2 years to develop the material to the point where we want to have it. And we are sourcing the nettle yarn from a region called Jiri in the east of Nepal. And this was a touristic hub before. So they call it the Switzerland of Nepal, which is, I mean, Nepal is beautiful, you don't need to call it Switzerland. And this was on the way to the Everest region, so it was a touristic hub. But then Nepal developed their infrastructure to the Everest, and now tourists are not passing this region anymore, so there is no tourism anymore. And then we figured out that this region is perfect for the nettle yarn, and it's perfect because the plants are growing in the forest. We don't need farmland for that or anything. So it's a very sustainable material, plus we are also supporting the local community to find new ways in finding new business.
But you spent about 2 years developing the material and refining it. Can you talk us through that process as well?
Yeah, the problem, so nettle has been used before. That's not a new invention, but usually you mix it with wool. And there were some ideas of nettle rugs like 20 years ago, maybe 30 years ago, but they were like jute, hemp rugs, very hard. So we were working on the material and we figured out that they are doing also fabrics out of nettle yarn. So that means you can also do very fine yarns with it. And then we had some problems with the dyeing process because we were dyeing it together with the wool and the nettle yarn didn't take the dye properly. So we figured out that they have a process in bleaching the yarn with white clay. So we just wash it with clear water, no chemics used, then we boil it to make it soft, and then we bleach it with white clay. So it's a pure natural process. And then the last thing we figured out was quite simple. Then we started to use cotton dyes instead of wool dyes because it's a plant-based yarn. So the whole collection is certified by PETA, the animal rights organization, as an official vegan textile.
That's amazing. Yeah, really. I mean, it's as you'll probably see when the samples come round. The feel is not what you imagine nettle to feel like. And thinking about the story and the narrative of these people behind the products that you've created, how do you communicate that?
So last year we did, so you see all the pictures. I was with my photographers in Nepal for 2 weeks. We went to Jiri, to the Nettle region. We went to Upper Mustang, to the Himalaya. And we took pictures of the people. So it was not just in showing the process, how to make the yarn. It was very important for us to show the people behind it. So what we do, if we present the collection on trade shows, I have a lot of pictures on the wall, framed with the people, not with interior shots. It's, we would like to show the people who are behind the product. So this is one thing. And a second thing is that quite often if we do like events with the interior designers or retailers or whatever, we do live calls to Nepal, like a Teams call. So first we have a presentation in interior design office, and then we do a call to Nepal and show live weaving to really show how it's made and how complicated it is and show the people behind it, because without them we can't do anything.
And when you're there, because you must have visited quite a few times, I'd imagine, it's very much a collaborative process. You're working with the makers directly?
Yes. Yeah. And that's quite important to go there as often as possible. First of all, you always come back with new ideas, new materials, and things like that. But I have a European point of view on like the environment there for the workers. So it's sometimes very simple. You go to a workshop and you see, okay, the walkway there is very muddy, and that's not nice because most of the people wear flip-flops or go barefoot. So then you can tell them, okay, please do something against it. And then next time you come, you will see, okay, they did that. There is now, it's a concrete floor there and everything. So it's sometimes the small things which we then discuss directly with the production partner, not with some people like the workers there. So, or we go directly to label staff and say, we saw something in the production which we don't think is right. Could you please take care of?
Yeah, it's interesting, and I think it's nice to see how you're sort of closely connected to the communities and really sort of enhancing their conditions as well in terms of improving, their facilities and allowing them to focus on their craft really in what you're doing. And I think that is hugely important, right? When we're creating products with these communities that are steeped in heritage, it's about recognizing that and paying respect to it.
Yeah, and the idea is that that's the sustainability factor of it. So if we can do some actions and measurements to develop the life of the people doing this for us, this is much more important than like a carbon footprint, because we don't have any. But also on the other side, to develop a product which has a quality so if you have a rug like that, you can have it for the rest of your life. So I think you will talk about the design part of it, how to design rugs which can last for 30 years, but we make sure that we have the quality that you can keep it.
Yeah, I think that's fascinating. Yeah, so Sebastian, coming on to you, if we could touch on the design aspect, and obviously, I mean, talk about your sort of process. And thanks, Marcel. Safe flight. Talking about your sort of experience with this project specifically and how it was for you, that would be amazing.
Yeah, you see it on this picture now. This is very touching and emotional, and I think for me in general, it's a huge privilege to have the possibility to travel to those countries. And to discover crafts. You know, a lot of those crafts, they don't exist in Germany anymore, in Europe anymore. And I think it's my task and my idea of design also to support those communities and the local culture and the local crafts. I'm living in Offenbach, or I started in Offenbach, living there. I have my studio there, and Offenbach was the city of leather production since 2005, I would say. Then the last company closed. They moved to Italy, they moved to Taiwan, to Asia, and so on. And the city lost its identity. And this was really one of the moments at university. Everything was about new technologies, new materials, and so on. I was thinking, okay, let's look into crafts, also the opposite. And I felt in love and work with glass and metal. And this was a possibility for me to work with the textile, with rugs in this case, and then with wool and silk we started with the first collection. Then Marcel came up with the nettle material, so a plant-based, plant material to do rugs, and we started thinking it completely different, to have it very natural with natural colors or mineral colors with very nice cuts, and working with different weaves to create a pattern. So not to do something shiny, loud, crazy, really to work on a collection which is lasting also in its design approach. And I think is there just one sample going around, or do we have more? Because the touch of the material is also very, very nice, you know. And of course you have to experience it actually barefoot, no? Like at home, and it's not scratchy or something at all. It's really very soft, and because of the know-how of those people who work on the material, who knot it and treat it, and it's really beautiful. And the people or the audiences, we presented the collection like in Munich and other shows, they really appreciate it because it's a completely different story we want to tell.
And I think when we look at sort of social environmental impact, that's always been a really sort of integral part to your design approach. Can you talk about that and how you sort of embed that within each project that you work on?
Yeah, well, I, as a designer, have a huge responsibility, and I think nowadays design is not just giving a nice shape and color to a material or to a design. It's also to look behind the scenes, and this was my ambition from the beginning. So working with Dedon from Germany, a big outdoor company, I flew with them to Indonesia to see the company, to meet the people doing the product I had the idea of, and they give it or bring it to birth, and they have their own factory, and it's actually looks quite German also, with air conditioning and lighting, everything as well. And for me it was the same with this project. So we flew together to see it and to understand how people live there, to dive into their culture, of course, to eat the local food, the momos, and to drink their beer and listen to the music. So to really not go there as a tourist, or really to sit next to them and try also to knot a rug. Okay, they are always laughing, and I'm not the fastest, so I tried a couple of minutes, and then to give also respect to them, because it's incredible what they are doing. And with Label Step, of course, they get the production on another level, you know. Sometimes I see factories and then I stop a project. Happened also with company. I couldn't work with the company because they are just about to produce and earn money. But here's another level involved: the responsibility, the respect. And Reto will talk more about it. And I think for me it's very important, and that's why it's important also to show those images and the storytelling, because nowadays we click a lot and then we buy it, and next day we get it delivered. But producing a rug, and I also have to learn, it takes time, and I need to learn to be patient, because we are not patient anymore at all, because we click and delivery next day. And of course, if you do a chair for a company, we can 3D print it, but a rug you can't 3D print, so we really have to wait 3 months to get a small sample of, I don't know, 50 centimeter. And then maybe the color is not correct, so you really feel like, oh my God, I have to change the color. I'm so sorry for the people to do another sample. And it takes time, and they have such a great expertise, and it's really amazing to find those craftsmen, and the honor really to work with them.
I think you're right, what you say about we look at the finished product, and so many consumers don't associate the sort of the source of the product, how it's been made, the processes that are involved within it. And that is how design can be such a good communicator, to tell each and every sort of single part of the process. And that's, you know, it's so important to embed these narratives into everything that we're making. And I think that's what this project has done so well. But yeah, coming to you, Reto, if you could talk about Label Step and give us an insight into the work that you do.
Yeah, sure. So Label Step is the fair trade label for handmade rugs. We've been founded 30 years ago in Switzerland. We are probably the most comprehensive, most demanding set of working condition and environmental standards in the rug industry, and we work in all major rug producing countries. So we work in Nepal. We have offices in India, in Pakistan, Afghanistan, in Iran, in Turkey, and in Morocco. We have a tiny head office in Switzerland, which is basically me and my laptop, and the rest of the team is local staff in the production countries.
So when we talk about sort of social impacts, and obviously with sustainability now, there's a lot of certifications in place, and a lot of the sort of the numbers and the data that is taken is sort of centered around environmental impact. How do we tangibly measure social impact?
I mean, first of all, I'm very much with you when, as you said at the beginning, we strongly believe you cannot think the one without the other. You cannot think social without environmental and vice versa. That is, these two are necessarily interlinked. That's one thing. And then the other thing is, it's true, like, and it's, you know, on the one hand side, we love to see how sustainability has become so important. There's so much talk about it. But that comes with a risk, and I think it's safe to say that there's also a lot of greenwashing out there. So it is, for us, extremely important to be very, very serious about it and to have proof. So we, like our standard, we try to, also in the social, we try to make as much, we try to apply objective criteria that are measurable, quantifiable, and we document them. And because I think that the credibility factor is linked to transparency. So what we are introducing, like all the brands who are working with us have access to a audit database where they can more or less follow in real time about the social compliance and the environmental situation in their production. And it's a bit of a tricky thing in rugs, because rugs are still being made as they've been done for hundreds of years in informal supply chains. There's not just one big factory in a big city. There's hundreds and thousands of looms in tiny little workshops or in home-based, like at people's homes in remote villages in Afghanistan or India or Nepal. So it's a tricky thing, but we've been doing that for 30 years. We don't do anything else. We are in our small niche of handmade rugs, but we have learned to master that, more or less.
And obviously, you know, the work that you've done is massively changed the sector over the years. And so when a brand approaches you to certify a product, what's specifically sort of required from the brand to reach that certification? Could you just sort of describe those steps that need to be put in place?
I mean, we start collaborating with brands by demanding not very much, or maybe it's a lot, but like the two important things are transparency and the will to disclose, you know, their entire supply chains, which is already a big ask, you know, and it's a sign of trust that they open up to us. And the other thing is to be willing to share our values and to be willing to improve, because we don't set out a very high standard and you have to meet that at every instance from the beginning. More important, in our opinion, is that the readiness, the willingness to go on a journey and to improve every day. So wherever you stand today, you can join STEP, and we work together in improving wherever necessary. But you must show the commitment to improve. That's our main requirement, if you want so.
And do you think, I mean, looking over the last sort of 10, 20 years, that there has been that positive shift in that acceptance of, I think, because when we've spoken about sustainability before, brands have shied away from talking about it because they might deem themselves as not being perfect. But there is something about accepting the fact that it isn't a destination, it's continually evolving, it's all about the journey, it's that commitment that's required. And have you seen a positive sort of change from brands in making that initial commitment? Yes. I have started working at STEP 20 years ago, and I think tons have changed. I mean, if I would have to mention three things, wages have increased, and I'm not saying there's
there's still a lot to be done, but artisans' wages have increased a lot, which is great, which is necessary. Second, in our, I don't know, unfortunately, rug weaving has for a long time been, and to some degree continues to be, linked by a lot of buyers and consumers with child labor. Child labor has decreased a lot in rug weaving, which is great news. And the third thing, and maybe kind of the most important part that enables the other more practical improvements, is awareness has changed. People, I don't know, 20, 30 years ago, a lot of people bought handmade because it's cheap. Because it was cheaper in many places of the world, it was cheaper to make things by hand than by a machine. That has changed. Now people buy handmade and artisanal products, probably also, as Sebastian said, because we start to realize that we have lost something in a lot of places. We have lost, and by losing craft in Europe, in Switzerland is just the same as in Germany and all countries in Europe almost, I'd say. We did not only lose a product or a craft, we lost part of our culture. And I think more and more people start realizing that this is world culture that we preserve by preserving craft. And that has given new value to the product and kind of automatically and naturally to the artisan who make that product.
I think that's such an important point, and I think you're right. I mean, in the UK, we've got the red list of endangered crafts that the Heritage Crafts Association produced. There's specific crafts dying out every single year, and I think you're right about the cultural exchange that happens when we can work together as a global creative community. And I mean, you must have experienced that with this project as well, the cultural exchange of, translating their work into, your design thinking and then bringing it together. And through that, it's, helping to preserve these valuable skill sets.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we talk about products, but at the end, I think they are treasures. And this changed a lot. It's not just another thing. You see a lot of things here. I think we should talk about treasures. Or you have V&A in London. You have the beautiful extension, V&A East or something called, right?
Yeah, V&A East, yeah.
Which is amazing, There are beautiful objects from all decades, and we should think about, okay, how should be a design or product should designed to enter maybe in 30 years this place, to become a treasure, something we put our love into it, at the end the money of course also, but we really invest in something to see it as an investment. And to add also to the question before here, what I realized on one hand in Kathmandu in Nepal, but also I do projects in Colombia, the young generation very often they want to move to big cities. It's the same in Europe, it's in China, it's everywhere, and a lot of those teenagers or young people, they don't have the proper education. They learn the craft from the parents or the grandparents, and then they come to the big city like Bogota in Colombia, and then they live in the favelas or don't find a proper job in the skyscrapers they would like to attend. And with the project with Armes we are doing there, but it's similar here, we give work to the young generation. Now they appreciate the craft they learned from their grandparents. So they can live now in the city where they have work and really appreciate and see the value of crafts. And of course then we show them magazines, articles, the pictures we take, also those beautiful portraits. And a lot of them, they never had a portrait like this by themselves. So it's something special for them. So they connect also in a different way. And they are getting proud of it. Like also the company owner who invests in a filter to clean the dyeing water afterwards. In the past, the colored water went to the field next door and there was no plant anymore after 2-3 years. And now they filter it, and now they have the vegetable garden next to the company because the water is clean.
I think, I just wanted to come back because you said a word before that I think is so essential. It's collaboration, and that is what everything we do, we try to do it from as holistic point of view as possible, because I believe that, artisanal production and other production as well, I guess, it's a tricky thing, isn't it? And especially if you want something sustainable, it's easy to ruin it. And I think that is something this project shows really nicely, because you can weave the highest quality, but if the raw material is cheap plastics, the end product's not worth much. Or if you weave a beautiful product out of high quality raw materials, but the design is just like the color of the season, and next year nobody wants to see it anymore. What good is it that rug will last for 30 years because people gonna trash it? So, and this is what I love about this project, and how I think why I think it's the best practice example for craft production. The raw material is very thoughtful and really high quality and greatly done. The social part of production is very, very thoughtful, and the design is made in a way that it lasts. Design, and I think that's such an important thing. The contribution design does to sustainability.
I think that's why third-party certification is so important in these processes, because you're holding, everyone accountable to make sure that every single element of a project is considered. From the waste of a project, to the way that it's produced, to the materials used, to the wages that people are paid, everything. You help to sort of keep everyone accountable throughout the process, and that's why it's hugely important.
I guess so, yeah. Or I mean, the way, because really we don't want to be seen as the rug police. That's not our role. What we love to do and how we love to see ourselves is kind of as a matchmaker and a facilitator for communication along the entire supply chain. So we want to, and we love, and again, I see it, and that just makes me smile if I see a picture with Sebastian sitting with a woman spinning wool in Kathmandu. And I think, like, if you bring people together and make them, not only work together but get to know each other, it's almost inevitable that something good will come out of it. We are that kind of optimists. That's how we love to see the world.
I think it's fascinating, and I just want to go back to a point that I think you touched on, Sebastian, about I mean, how the world of craft has really sort of evolved over recent years. Craft and luxury is, it has become the sort of the new luxury. But talking about younger generations of designers and students and graduates, I mean, from a UK perspective, I feel like they're not taught enough about the beauty of these practical skill sets and how we can harness them. And they're not, we don't have enough young people coming into these industries to sustain a lot of these crafts. How can we sort of encourage people to find the beauty again in the making process?
Yeah, good point. I went to my university in Offenbach 2001 because there was a ceramic workshop and a leather workshop, and 2 years later they closed them to have space for a CNC machine and 3D printer and so on. And now they are looking on eBay and other platforms to get those machines again, because now they want to open a leather workshop again. It's not easy to find those old machines, they destroyed them. So now they're really looking for workshops to have these original old machines to stitch thick leather. Because there's the interest of young people. I have also people in my team, they do work 3 days for me, and 2 days they have their own fireplace, do their ceramic and so on by themselves and sell it, because people want to have a human touch in their products, not just the mass-consumed things. They want to have some original pieces which are different, And I think this is also a potential of shows like this to give a platform to those little artisans, artists, workshops, ateliers, to show unique things. But of course, at the end, we need to be honest and transparent. There were a couple of issues with big fashion brands producing outside of Milan in sweatshops with Chinese people working there for €3 an hour for 7 days. And then the company's surprised because the supplier had a supplier, blah, blah, blah. But at the end, maybe they knew, maybe not. And I think this is especially his task. But for me as a designer, it's so important really to know the places where the products I design are produced. And I can say maybe 90% of the places I really know. And I know the people there and how the situation is. And I was so impressed by the workshops in Kathmandu, just with the lighting, that there was a proper LED lighting. I know workshops, there was just an old bulb in the center, or they really have space and have a perfect restroom, which was also not normal in the past there. So a restroom I would go also as a Western person, or some young women with their babies, they were sleeping in small hammocks between, which was also new, because I think in the past when you had a baby you had no job, so they have a possibility to go there and to earn still money. Of course maybe they work less hours, but they have a possibility, which is also necessary in other countries or situations you are out of business.
Yeah, I think there's so much education to be done around these processes and how actually we can have such an impact through projects like this to, you know, on a global creative community. I think it's really important. Has the project in whole made you feel more optimistic that a greener solution to the design world is possible, and there's a way forward that we can progress more transparently? I mean, as you say, there is still a lot of improvements to be made. But has it left you feeling optimistic overall?
In the younger generation, for sure, I think their behavior, how they buy and select products, changed also over the last years, thanks maybe also to the pandemic, that we question more where products come from. And yeah, I'm quite optimistic, but of course, you mentioned there was a topic greenwashing, no? There are still companies, the sustainability is part of the marketing, and they ask you at the end of the process. But there are also companies, they have now a sustainability manager in the company. Sometimes for design it's, sorry, pain in the ass, because you have to rethink the product 5 times, because you are not allowed to glue fabric anymore on the foam, designing an armchair, for example, because every material needs to be separate after lifetime, no? That they can recycle it, or that they can perfectly repair it. So there are a lot of new questions, no, for circular design. And there is a change. You see it already on different fairs with lighting, or also furnitures and so on. But of course there's still a lot to do, and people have to accept also maybe a little bit a higher price. And other companies need to give the service. Okay, we take a sofa back and upholster it again, or we change it, we repair it. It's not just about online sales. They have to deliver the service, to act responsible.
I think you're right. And touching on price, you know, our perception of what design truly costs has been skewed for many years. And you know, it's about, I think the positive aspect of all of this awareness and the communication around craft and its importance is allowing us to better understand, especially younger generations again, the value of these skill sets and what they should be worth and what products should truly cost. And I think that is something that, you know, I think the awareness around that is massively improving.
And the focus maybe on slowness, like you have the fast fashion, fast food, fast furniture. The focus is now on the...
Because things are lasting longer,
no?
you know, if they're made this way and if they're made with integrity. So I'd love to open up to the audience. I'm aware that we've not got much time left, but we've got time for a couple of questions. I'm sure there must be a couple of questions out there. Someone has to be first, and don't be shy. Please do fire away. Got a question. Do we have a mic? I'll give you mine. Stand up. How did you get the idea is what he's asking.
Yeah, well, on the Marcel, he visited me in my studio, then we talked about the material, about our values. I think this is most important. You need a partner on the other side you really trust, and you have the same vision. Otherwise it will not work, because designing and developing a product takes 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, always depends. So you need to feel safe also. But it happens also that I stop a project after a year, or I don't know, because we are not in the same line, and you have to be honest. And then of course we went together to Kathmandu. I've never been, so it was really an exciting trip to go there, a huge source of inspiration, meeting really the people, to understand the culture, if possible within a week, no? And to see how they work and what they are special in. and sometimes, of course, to challenge them also if they can do something different. And in this dialogue also we came up, on one hand he came up with the local wool, no? Himalayan wool, which is something different because a lot of others, they import them, the wool, and on the other hand the sustainable one with the nettle. And which is really successful because there is a, let's say, a vegan movement, don't trend, it's a movement, or people think more about it, they don't want to have silk because it's also difficult, the material silk. And then we get inspired from the countryside, from the local colors, so we take a lot of pictures like this beautiful, amazing ones here actually, and take colors here from the sheep or from the grass or the mountains and the patterns, so it's really much connected to my experience there.
And nettle, it's brilliant for hospitality spaces. The durability is excellent, right? Yep. So that's also another huge benefit of working with that material. Do we have any other questions? If not, I think I might have, I have one more for both of you actually. Looking at the sort of industry as a whole, what would you say to sort of as an urgent call for action to companies that are trying to sort of do better and be better? What would you say to companies to encourage them to keep pushing forward? Because the world is kind of quite a scary place at the moment. I think to push forward with sort of continually doing the right thing and improving you know, standards and quality and all of these things, what would you say to encourage companies to keep pushing forward in the right direction?
Yeah, well, I think the audience is also changing their mindset and attitude and how they choose. And of course, this is even the nettle rugs, price-wise, they are similar to wool and silk. Some people would say, okay, now it's a plant, it's maybe cheaper. But of course, the products are not cheap, no? And of course, it's not affordable for everyone. That's sometimes really the pity. That's why I try to have collaboration with different kind of levels, no, to work with, which is important for me as well. But sometimes I get a message on social media, okay, I saved money for 2 years to invest in your chair and get it. So I think we have to change the mindset also, like the companies that try to work or develop more sustainable and respectful and responsible, and so also maybe the clients on the other side. And it takes time. It's not from now to tomorrow. And of course now with special taxes and all these things, it gets a little bit more complicated. But maybe we get also new markets. Maybe we should concentrate in different directions now and focus on those countries, or also more on our local contacts.
Yeah, and I guess my main message to companies would be, and many have already, you know, they don't need us to tell them that, but really to make sure that people understand that sustainability makes sense, also economically. Maybe not always in the immediate return of investment sense, but we have seen that times and times again, that those companies thinking in the long run, thinking of, you know, I don't know, family business, they would maybe have a next generation who will want to take over. They will have higher product quality, which will allow them to earn more money in so many ways. Producing sustainably is also the rational choice from an economic point of view. And I've seen that in, you know, the rug industry has suffered, to be very honest. Tons of companies have gone out of business in the last 10, 20 years. But the ones I see thriving are the ones who have been very serious about their sustainability. And I think that is a key, and more companies are realizing that, I believe.
Yeah, you're right. I think they are. I think it goes hand in hand, you know. sustainable and economic growth is so intertwined, and I think that's how we can look at this project as a positive example of that. But I think for me I think what I've sort of gathered from speaking to all of you is collaboration is key to any of these projects, and again it can hugely impact communities, and then it's thinking about the communication at every step of the way, be that from a company to their consumers, and from a company to a supplier. It's about having this transparency, this open communication, this open dialogue that can really change industries. So thank you. It's been a really insightful conversation to hear about the project, and thank you all for coming, and have a wonderful rest of the day.
Thank you.
Thank you.